I hate loot. All right, I'm going to admit it. I am on the anti-hype train. I am on the train of people who just do not like this guy. It's been a year, and I have not found a single redeeming quality for loot. As a result, I am going to try to make a commander deck about him and see if I can make myself like this guy. Real quick, though, I do want to ask, are there any commanders that you actually really hate that you would love me to try to build in a way that maybe you would enjoy? Let me know in the comment section below. Here is Loot. This stupid little schmuck costs Teamer and 2. He's got 2/4. He's got Double Strike, Vigilance, and Haste, and he's got the Exhaust ability, where he can only use each of these abilities only once in a game, unless, you know, we cheat that system. His Exhaust abilities are as follows: pay a green to get the Black Lotus ability, pay a blue to get the Ancestral Recall ability, or pay a red to get the Lightning Bolt ability. Get 3 mana, draw 3 cards, or deal 3 damage. Now, again, I want to make sure that I enjoy this little schmuck because I hate him. I hate him with all of my being. I don't even know why I hate him, but I know that I just kind of do. So let's see what we can do in regards to blinking him. At our budget level of $15, we have access to a lot of pretty good blinking spells that will allow us to reuse him so that his exhaust ability does not cuck us. Nephalia Smuggler lets us pay for and tap him to blink a creature. Meneldor allows us to do it just by punching people. Identity Thief allows us to blink something by cloning it. Then we have the Lily Splash Mentor, which can exile a creature we control and put it back on the battlefield for 3 mana. The Illusionist Stratagem, Displace, and both of these allow us to exile 2 cards at once. Splash Portal lets us blink something for 1 mana. Blur lets us blink something and draw a card. Siren's Ruse lets us blink something for 2 mana. Essence Flux does it for 1. Teferi's Twist does it for 2, and a Planar Incision does it for 2. Now, that is a lot of ways to blink cards, but all of these are literally just here so that we are able to keep loot going as much as possible. Now, the other way to do that is to also untap loot. So we have a variety of untappers to talk about as well. Kiora's Follower lets us untap loot so we can use them again. Loriath allows us to do the same thing, and Elvish Refueler does not untap the loot so much as it allows us to use loot's ability as if we hadn't used it already, in case we do not have access to a blink spell. If we happen to run out of speed, then we have Retrieve and Pull Through the Weft and Songcrafter Mage to allow us to get any of our powerful spells back from the graveyard. Though Songcrafter is effectively allowing us to recast it and Pull Through the Weft doubles as a ramp spell, they still do basically what's printed on the tin. Then we have one final piece of recursion. We have Torrential Gearhulk, which will allow us to use instants from our grave, again if need be. A lot of times this is just going to be used to blink loot, but sometimes we can use this to get reuses out of counter spells, which is a really fun way to utilize this card. But we also have a few gigantic blink targets. We want to be blinking more than just loot, so let's put in a Verodius Gearhulk so we're able to put 4 1/1 counters on something big with double strike, like loot, or a Diluvian Primordial, which allows us to cast powerful cards from all of our opponent's graveyards. And we need more ways to close out the game than just putting 1/1 counters on loot, so why not putting 1/1 counters on Atarka World Render, a 6/4 dragon with flying, has trample whenever she attacks. This will allow us to close out games pretty well. 12 damage on her own, more damage if we supplement it with things like the Gearhulk and loot. Then we have the Simic Sky Swallower, which is in here because if I have to play a card I hate, then I'm gonna play a card I like. And I love me some Simic Sky Swallower. I love me some giant fucking fish in the sky. That's all he is, and he makes me happy. So let's talk about our draw power so we can get away from staring at loot's dumb face. We're going to be running an 8-card draw package, and we're going to be focusing on cards that work well when blinked or with blink. So we have the Serum Visionary, which gives us the Serum Vision ability whenever it blinks. The Muldrifter, which draws us 2 cards whenever it blinks. Garruk's Pack Leader and Garruk's Uprising, which will allow us to draw cards when big things blink. The Dream Dew and Trancer, which draws us 2 cards and stuns something whenever it enters the battlefield. Then we have Starwinder, a new card from Edge of Eternities, which allows us to make ourselves draw a lot of cards based on the combat damage that any of our creatures do, and the Combustible Gear Hulk, which allows us to either mill 3 or draw 3 and then burn our opponents if we happen to mill, depending on what our opponents allow us to do. This guy is great when blinked. Then we have the Mutalith Vortex Beast. Whenever this enters the battlefield, we can flip a coin for each opponent we have. For each flip we win, we draw a card, but for each flip we lose, they get another lightning bolt. So no matter what, we actually win here. And that does it for all of our draw power, because Loot has a lot of our draw power strapped to his furry fucking behind. For removal, we are foregoing using board wipes. We are ignoring good deck building philosophy because we have access to repeated removals and we have access to things like Terastodon, but also because we don't want to make enemies of the entire table. We are already playing Loot. We are already our own worst enemy, so let's go ahead and lean into that. But for our removal pieces, we have the Indrik Stomp Howler and Reclamation Sage and Woodfall Primus. Each of these can blow up a non-creature permanent when they touch the board. Well, that's what the Primus does and the Acidic Slime does. The Storm Howler and the Reclamation Sage only blow up artifacts or enchantments. Terastodon blows up 3 non-creature permanents whenever it touches the board. We can protect ourselves from our opponent's spells with Refute and Negate. We can blow up artifacts and enchantments with Colosseum Behemoth. We can once again play a card that I like in Meteor Golem to blow up any problematic card on the board. Abrade and Resculpt get rid of creatures and artifacts at instant speed if need be. The Duplicant allows us to exile creatures on the battlefield if we get it out, and then the Inferno Titan will throw a lightning bolt at something twice whenever it enters and whenever it swings. Then we have Essence Capture so that we can counter our own fucking loot. Our commander costs 5 for some reason, despite being a myriad of 1-mana cards, so let's go ahead and have a bunch of ramp in our deck. Beginning with Coiling Oracle, this enters the battlefield and allows us to either draw a card or place a land on the battlefield, depending on what we draw. Then we have the Farhaven Elf, which gets us a land when it touches the board, as does the Wood Elves and Spring Bloom Druid, though this one makes us sacrifice stuff to make it happen. Llanowar Visionary draws us a card when it comes out, but it is also a mana dork, and Sky Serpent Seeker allows us to use the Exhaust ability to get ourselves lands with his own ability. Then we have Diligent Farmhand, Font of Fertility, Sammy's Curiosity, and Wayfarer's Bauble, which are all the exact same card and allow us to ramp by paying 1 mana on one turn and then 2 mana on a subsequent turn. Then we have Rampant Growth to get any basic land from our library, and the Teamer Battlecrier to lower the cost of all of our spells by 1 based on how many creatures we have with power 4 or greater. Since we have some big blink targets, we have a lot of those. Then for our basic lands, we have 3 mountains, 5 islands, and 7 forests, with our fetching lands being Terramorphic Expanse, Evolving Wilds, Bountiful Landscape, and Ash Barrens. The landscape is basically the best fetching land we have access to at this budget, so always remember, if you're running a 3-color deck, run your landscapes. Then we have the untapped lands in Gruul of Game Trail, Mossfire Valley, and Cinder Glade, with our tapped lands being Sheltered Thicket and Temple of Abandon. The Temple is here so we have early game Scry, and the Sheltered Thicket is there so we can cycle it if we need to. Izzet lands are running a similar gamut. Untapped lands of Sulphur Falls, Ferris Lake, Frostboil Snarl, and Shivan Reef, with the tapped land being Temple of Epiphany, because Wizards has not given us the Bicycle land for this color combination just yet. Then for our Simic lands, we are running the untapped lands of Yavimaya Coast, Flooded Grove, and Overflowing Basin, and Vine Glimmer Snarl, with our tapped land being Temple of Mystery, because we want the early game Scry, and a Tangled Islet because it says Forest, and we can search it out if need be. Our Omni lands are going to be Exotic Orchard and Command Tower, with our utility lands being Pit of Offerings to get rid of problematic things in the graveyard, Spine Rock Knoll because it's easy to do 7 damage when Loot takes care of 3 of it, and Mosswort Bridge so that we can cast spells for free later in the game. And that does it for everything in the deck, and now let's see if I can playtest this and actually enjoy myself. Looking at our opening hand, we have Kiora's Follower, which gives us access to our first untapper, and we have 2 of our deck's colors. I'm willing to work with just 2 of our deck's colors and see what we get, because both of them do end up working for Kiora. So let's get Yavimaya Coast out and pass to turn 2. We get the Spine Rock Knoll, which is fine. It's not what I want. I would rather an untapped land, but we can tap 2 to get QRS Follower out and pass to our opponents. Moving into the next turn, we have a Sulfur Fall, which we do not have the mountain to make it come to play untapped, so we can go ahead and play the Spine Rock Knoll and see what it grants us. And it grants us Disappointment in the form of a Refute, which we are not going to be able to use. So let's go ahead and put a Temple under it instead. We don't normally miss that hard on something like this, but I'm fine. The reason we're doing the Temple is because it's very hard to time a counter spell with the restrictions of the Spine Rock Knoll. So, we missed this one. It's not going to be the only miss the deck has. We still need to be able to do something, though. We have access to 3 mana right here, and we have nothing to do except abrade if our opponents do anything. Let's assume that they do. Let's abrade their card and then go to our next turn. Turn 4 sees us having Mosswort Bridge, and we have Sulfur Falls. Unfortunately, once more, because we do not have the mountain, the Sulfur Falls is not going to be able to get us what we need. So let's use the Mosswort Bridge and see if we can't find something worth finding in the top of our deck. And right off the bat, I'm already just floored because a Terastodon is like the best thing to hide under a Mosswort Bridge. I'm okay with that. And we still have 4 mana available, but nothing to spend it on, so let's pass to our opponents. We are at turn 5, and we start off with a Combustible Gearhulk, but once again, we do not have access to the mana that we need because the Sulfur Falls does not see the basics we need. But let's go ahead and get Loot online because we need to go ahead and punch somebody in the face for 2 with Loot. Now let's move on to turn 6. We have a Starwinder in hand, and I'd like access to some of Loot's abilities. So let's pay 1 and turn Loot into 3 red mana, and then let's tap QRS Follower to untap Loot. And then we are going to use that 3 red mana and 1 and 2 and 3, and we're going to get the Combustible Gearhulk out online so that we can force our opponents to make a choice. Actually, we're not going to untap Loot. No. We are going to untap this Forest. There we go. So Combustible Gearhulk is out, and our opponents are going to make the choice. Early in the game, they might just take the burn, so they're going to burn for 2. They're going to burn for 3. They actually won on that one. But we get to get rid of their most powerful cards automatically with a flipped up Terastodon. Sucks to be them. Then we move on to turn 7. We have a Wayfarer's Bauble. I'm not super thrilled about that this late in the game. I would have liked that way earlier, but let's go ahead and force some plays. We are going to enter combat and swing with Loot and the Combustible Gearhulk and the Terastodon. It's unlikely our opponents are going to be able to block all of them, so we should be able to get Spine Rock Knoll online. If the Knoll is online, then in main phase 2, we are able to flip it over and give ourselves a Temple of Epiphany to see a land on top of our library, which we do want to keep. We can then pay blue into Loot in order to draw 1, 2, 3 cards, and I'm actually happy with the cards we drew. The Woodfall Primus will be very helpful later on in the game. And I think at this point, we just pass to our opponents. If they play a powerful creature, we can untap. Well, actually, no, we don't have the red mana for this. So there's actually only one move we have access to, and that is once our opponents do anything we don't like, we tap the QRS Follower, we untap the Sulfur Falls, and we Essence Flux the Terastodon in order to get rid of their powerful permanents. Then we move into turn 8, and we are set up to do everything we need. I just wish the things that we needed to do were fun because it's Loot. So let's see here. I think a land for turn. Let's assume that last turn we would have had to discard cards, so we would have discarded those guys. There's a Forest out on the board for our turn. We can Lightning Bolt something with Loot. Let's assume that we need to do that. Bonk, you need to lose a card with Loot. And then we're going to pay 1, 2, and we are going to Plantar Incision, and we are going to blink Loot. Then we have access to him for the combat phase. Let's swing with all of our creatures. Loot has Vigilance, so we're going to be able to keep him. And now we have the Lightning Bolt available in case we need. But as is tradition, let's use Loot to generate 3 mana, and let's use that mana to get an Inferno Titan out to blow up one of their cards right now. Our opponents don't need their powerful pieces. We can just burn them away and then just keep on punching them in the face. We still have 2 charges on loot, so when we go into turn 9, we are going to be able to just swing out with everything once more. And if our opponents try to put up any weird blocking shenanigans, loot will lightning bolt one of those cards. Then we can untap loot, tap loot again, and draw 3 cards. And we still have a blink spell in our hand, so we can use this to either blink loot, or we can use this to blink the Inferno Titan or the Combustible Gear Hulk, depending on what we want to do. Honestly, at this stage of the game, we have a very, very good board state, and if they kill our board, we've got a bunch of powerful cards in hand. We don't care if we lose anything. So yeah, I think the way to make loot is to just chuck a bunch of cards that I like that are not loot in the deck, and then loot will allow me to get to those cards. Maybe I've got to build this guy in paper just so that I have access to that, because that's actually kind of fun, I'm not gonna lie. If you're upgrading this deck, the Blink package can benefit from Venifar because she's able to get creatures out on the board effectively for free, but then you want some other fun things to do. So I would suggest Redshift Rocketeer Chief, as its exhaust ability will allow you to put all your permanents from your hand onto the battlefield. The Antocausal Vestige, which is a fun Blink target, which will give you access to tons of resources throughout the game, drawing cards and allowing you to throw things onto the battlefield based on your lands. Deadeye Navigator can just soul bomb with loot to allow you to constantly blink him to always have access to his exhaust abilities. If you are doing that, you are going to want to add in cards like Reliquary Tower so that you do not lose your maximum hand size. And if you're going to go that far, you may as well put in Conjurer's Closet and Thassa Deep Dwelling to make it easier to blink. We can also put in the other stupid little rat himself by making us have access to extra additional lands, and this version of loot can also put our big creatures onto the battlefield, which is great. Spark Double can give us more loots for our loot. Itali Primal Conqueror can loot our opponent's cards away from them by casting them for free, and then Terror of the Peaks can be used to give us a ton of burn for all of the blink that we are using. And with all of that, I am finally free from the curse of loot. I have made a loot deck. I have said my piece on loot. I do not think Magic loot is good. I think that little mascot guy, this little mascot guy does not work. Anyway, I've done my part. I've made my loot deck. Now you need to make your loot deck and get off my lawn. I'm kidding. Thank you for watching the video. I appreciate each and every one of you. I have a splitting headache, so I am going to go figure out what to do about that. Thank you for watching, and insert end of video tagline here.